In the city of Tzfat, in the north of the land of Israel, where mountains meet the sky and the air is as clear as the soul of a righteous man, lived an old sage named Rabbi Eleazar. He was a descendant of great Kabbalists, and people came to him from distant lands to hear words of truth. One evening, as the sun touched the peaks of Meron, a young man knocked on Rabbi Eleazar's door. His name was David. He was handsome, wealthy, knew how to recite poetry and play the violin. Women in Tzfat turned their heads when he passed. Yet David was unhappy. "Rebbe," he said, bowing low to the ground, "I am young, good-looking, I have money and a home, but no woman agrees to become my wife. At first, they smile, then they leave. I don't understand. What is wrong with me?" Rabbi Eleazar was silent for a long time. He sat in his chair, fingering his beads, looking at the candles dying in the candlestick. "Do you want to know why women don't choose you?" he asked at last. "Yes, Rebbe, I want to know the secret. What does a woman look for in a man?" The old man smiled into his beard and said, "The secret is as old as the world and as simple as water. But to understand it, you need to hear one story. Sit down." David sat on a low stool, and Rabbi Eleazar began. In old Krakow lived a wealthy merchant named Reuven. He had an only daughter, the beautiful Leah. She was wise, kind, her eyes like two lakes, her voice like a bell on Shabbat. Reuven wanted to marry her to a worthy man, but he could not decide among 3 suitors. The first suitor was a scholar. His name was Chaim. He knew the entire Talmud by heart, could quote Rambam day and night, and even the rabbi himself consulted him on difficult questions. He was as poor as a mouse in a barn, but his mind shone brighter than gold coins. The second suitor was a warrior. His name was Shimon. He served in the army of the Polish king, was brave and quick with his hands. His name was known from Warsaw to Lviv. He protected Jewish quarters from robbers, and no one dared raise a hand against his neighbors. He too was not rich, but his courage was famous throughout the region. The third suitor was a merchant. His name was Avraham. His father was known in the guild. He led caravans to Turkey and back. Avraham himself was young, handsome, rich, had a house on a quiet street, and a bag of silver under the floorboards. But he was neither a great scholar nor a brave warrior. Reuven called his daughter and said, "Leah, here are 3 suitors. Chaim is wise, Shimon is brave, Avraham is rich. Choose. To whom shall I give you as a wife?" But Leah shook her head. "Father, I cannot. I hardly know them. I have seen each only a few times. How will I know which one is the right one?" Reuven was saddened but agreed to wait, and the wise Kabbalist who lived in their house said, "There is a way to know a person's true essence. Do not ask him about Torah. Do not look at his wealth. Do not test his strength. Look at the smallest thing he does when he thinks no one is watching. Then you will understand." Reuven ordered his servants to secretly observe each of the suitors. The scholar Chaim was watched for 3 days. The first day, he rose early, prayed with special devotion, then sat down to teach his students. He spoke beautifully, smoothly, quoting the sages. The students listened with their mouths open. But in the evening, when he was alone, the servant saw a strange thing. Chaim took out a fine silk handkerchief embroidered with golden threads from his chest. He stroked it, pressed it to his cheek, and whispered, "My lost soul, how I miss you." The servant recognized it. This handkerchief had once belonged to a woman Chaim had loved in his youth, but her father had given her to another because Chaim was poor. Years had passed, but Chaim had never been able to forget the past. He lived with a ghost. On the second day, the servant noticed that Chaim did not give a single copper coin to the beggar standing at the gate. The scholar walked past as if he hadn't noticed. And in the evening, he again took out the handkerchief and gave in to his memories. On the third day, the servant heard Chaim talking to himself. If I had money, that woman would have been mine. If I were rich, I would have been chosen. But now I teach children for pennies, and no one loves me. The servant returned to Reuben and reported. When Leah heard, she wept. This man carries an old wound in his heart like a sharp stone. He will not be able to love me. He will compare me with the one he lost. I will never be first for him, only second. No, I will not marry Chaim. The warrior Shimon was also watched for 3 days. The first day, he trained with his sword at dawn, cut straw dummies, then walked through the city, his shoulders squared. People stepped aside for him. At noon, he entered a tavern. An old man sitting there spilled wine on his boot. Shimon jumped up, raised his hand, but restrained himself, only growled threats. The old man apologized, and Shimon calmed down. On the second day, the servant saw Shimon give a few coins to orphans. But later, when a beggar from another quarter approached him, Shimon roughly pushed him away. "Get lost, beggar. I don't give to everyone who comes along." On the third day, the servant followed Shimon to his home. There the warrior sat by the window, looking at the street. A beautiful woman passed by, his neighbor's wife. Shimon whistled after her, said something obscene. The woman blushed and quickened her pace. "What is this?" the servant asked, a soldier he knew. "Ah," he answered, "Shimon is always like that. He is brave on the battlefield, but in life he does not respect other men's wives. He has a bad reputation." The servant told Reuben. When Leah heard, she shook her head. "This man is a hero for strangers, but in small things he is an offender and a boor. If he does not respect even his neighbor's wife, how will he respect me when I become his wife? No, I will not marry Shimon." The merchant Avraham was also watched for 3 days. The first day, he rose early, prayed, then went to the market. He bargained hard, but fairly. He cheated no one. When a poor woman could not pay for a piece of cloth, Avraham said, "Take it, madam. When you have money, you will pay. Right now, your stove is empty. Your children need clothes." On the second day, the servant saw Avraham helping an old neighbor repair his roof. He climbed the ladder himself, handed up the boards himself. No servants, no workers, himself. The neighbor thanked him and wanted to pay, but Avraham refused. "You helped my father, I help you. This is not money, it is honor." On the third day, the servant found Avraham in the synagogue. He sat in a corner reading Psalms. A boy came up to him who had lost a coin and began to cry. Avraham looked up, smiled, took out his own coin. "Here, my son, I found it on the floor. It must be yours." The boy ran off gratefully. In the evening, Avraham came to Reuben with a basket of fruit. "Honorable Reuben," he said, "I am not a sage like Chaim, nor a hero like Shimon, but I know how to work, I know how to share, and I respect old age, need, and sorrow. If your daughter agrees, I will cherish her like the apple of my eye." Leah, who had been standing behind the door, came out and said, "I agree, Abraham, because I have understood. A woman does not choose the wisest, the bravest, or the richest. A woman chooses a man who is true to himself in small things. When no one is watching, he remains a man. He does not weep over the past. He does not insult the weak. He does not boast of strength. He feeds the hungry, repairs the neighbor's roof, gives his last coin to a crying child. And this is not a game. This is his soul." Rabbi Eleazar fell silent and looked at David. "Do you understand, my son?" David sat with his head bowed. "I think so," he said quietly. "All this time, I thought that women wanted to see scholarship, strength, or wealth in me. But they watch me when I don't see them. They see how I treat the servants, how I toss a coin to a beggar, how I speak to the elderly, how I behave when no one is watching. And if in small things I am petty, angry, or lazy, they sense that in big things I will be the same." "Exactly," the sage nodded. "A woman does not choose the man who speaks beautifully. She chooses the man who knows how to be. Her heart is like litmus paper. It reacts not to words, but to actions, even the smallest. Because in a drop of water, the whole sky is reflected, and in one action, the whole soul is reflected." David stood up, bowed, and said, "Rebbe, I understand. I will return home and watch myself. I will watch my every step, every word, how I treat those beneath me. And when I have corrected myself, then women will see in me the one they are looking for." "Go in peace," said Rabbi Eleazar. "And remember, a woman always chooses a man who does not forget God, even when he thinks no one is watching. Because if he remembers God in secret, he will not betray in public." David went out into the street. The night was starry. He breathed the air of Tzfat, and it seemed to him that the mountains around were singing an ancient song. It is said that a year later he found a wife. Not the most beautiful, not the richest, but one with whom his home became a full cup. And when neighbors asked, "David, how did you succeed?" he smiled and answered, "I stopped thinking about how I was being chosen. I started thinking about how I myself could become worthy of being chosen. And then everything came by itself." And the sages say, "A woman chooses a man who remains the same in darkness as in light, for in that lies the whole truth about a person."